Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to part 13 of my Kaurismaki season. Today's film is Juha, or Juha, from 1999. Again, this is on the Studio Canal Blu-ray set, which I would highly recommend. It has a bunch of his films, including 9 shorts. This is a black and white film, as a few Kaurismaki films are, and this is his silent film. It's 1999, so you might as well keep up with modern filmmaking techniques and do a black and white silent film. This, like most of these films, stars a bunch of regulars. We have Kati Outinen as Marja. We have Sakari Kuzmanen. Again, apologies for the pronunciations. And Andre Wilms. And this is a simple story based on a novel about Marja and Juha, who are farmers. They have a couple of little sheep, a dog, and lots of cabbages. It's one of the great cabbage films. If you're doing a top 10 cabbage film, this would be right up there in your cabbage list. And they live a simple life, isolated out in the country. Juha sleeps with a giant wrench. They have a motorbike and sidecar, and that's how they get around. This film, because it's a silent film, relies on the score. Music is a very important part of Kaurismaki films. It's not like a full parody of silent cinema, it's a homage to silent cinema. Again, it's a simple story. An outsider comes into their world. He is driving a flash sports car, so you can tell that he'll be the villain of the piece, because men who drive flash sports cars usually are villains. And his car breaks down, and Juha brings him back to their farm and helps him fix it, but it'll be overnight. And he is smitten by Marja, and he wants to take her back with him to the city. At first he thinks that he's Juha's daughter. There's a line about Juha's far too old for you, even though Juha's looks younger than the Andre Wilms character, Chanelka. I'll probably pronounce that wrong as well. And he goes away back to the city, but he's planted that seed in Marja's head about growing old in this farm out in the wilderness, and maybe she should see some of the world, see what the city has to offer her. So she starts buying makeup, and you can kind of tell in the wonderful little scenes that she's paying less attention to the farm work. She's reading magazines, and when Juha comes in for his dinner, she's busy doing her makeup and reading magazines. And he kind of looks at her, so she takes a pack of sausages out of the fridge, puts it in the microwave for like 2 seconds, brings it back out, and Juha eats sausages with a spoon. There's a wonderful composition of she's in the background, doing her makeup, and he's in the foreground eating little sausages from a spoon, and he just gives a look to the camera, which is just one of the great looks. So her interest has been piqued by this outsider because she's naive. She thinks he's genuinely interested in her, but as we know, he drives a sports car. So a few weeks later he comes back with the intention of taking her away. He takes the couple out to a local bar, where Juha gets a bit sozzled, and he tells Marja that they're going to leave in the morning together and they're going to go back to the city. She leaves Juha a note. They go back to the city. They do have a stop off for, I would say, a picnic, but I don't think any eating's involved. Well, not of food anyway. And there's a beautiful scene where there's a lovely waterfall, and Audrey Williams puts down a nice little blanket on the grass, but they're obviously going to have sex. It's disgusting. And afterwards she covers him up with his jacket and pulls a branch to give him shade while he's having a little snooze post-coitus. Because again, she, in her naivety, thinks he actually cares about her. But we know that he's a Badgian because he wakes up and sees a butterfly on the grass and he stands on it and crushes it and takes pleasure in crushing it. But then his face changes when she comes back to him. So they go into the city. He puts her up in a hotel. She has coffee and a lovely time. And then later on she's taken by another familiar face to Kaurismaki viewers. And she is taken to this house where there is 4 women and a woman who introduces herself as Andre Wilm's sister, and we can pretty much tell it's a house where there's girls who entertain men. And that's where I'll leave the plot, as Juha tries to find her, is obviously upset because she's left. He goes to the authorities. There's a nice Sam Fuller quote on the blackboard of the police station. There's also a Nazarene poster by Brunel somewhere in the film as well, because as we know, Kaurismaki is a film fan as well, and he knows his history. It's just another wonderful little Kaurismaki film. I wouldn't say it's a great film, but again, his batting average is really high. This one is dedicated to another fallen comrade, Jacko Talaskivi, who's an actor and producer. This is a couple of years after Matti Pellenpa's death, who was an actor in just about all of Kaurismaki films up to that point, up to about 1996. So you do feel there is still this air of more melancholy than usual in the 2 films after Pellenpa's death. But again, it has that kind of Kaurismaki humour. It's not perhaps as funny. Again, it's a bit darker. And I think that probably is just a change in his life with, some of his friends and collaborators dying off. Again, there's lovely little moments in the film. Again, it's only 78 minutes long. It doesn't have to be. Kaurismaki is really good at judging how long a film really needs to be, which again, as we've said so many times, that's not a gift that every filmmaker has. There is something comforting about Kaurismaki films in the fact that he does have a stock group of actors. It's familiar faces, there's a familiarity to it. Kati Outinen is wonderful because she's really the main character, not as much Juha. She's got great eyes as she goes from this naive character to kind of the shock of being in the city and being in that situation and understanding how she's supposed to make money. There's some little David Lynch moments in the film as well. It's just another really good Kaurismaki film. Again, perhaps not a great film, but still very good and worth your time. Again, Kaurismaki's not for everybody. There's a certain tone, a certain humour that perhaps isn't for everybody. But again, the silent thing works as intertitles. The score, to be fair, at times is a little bit intrusive, but then that's the case sometimes with a lot of silent films. They go a little bit overboard with the score. So even though it's a kind of pastiche and a homage, it still works as a visual piece of work. You don't actually need words. All in all, another really enjoyable film, but again, it's a bit more melancholy than his other films, a bit bleaker than some of his other films. The reasons for that are open to interpretation. So thanks very much for watching episode 13 of Kaurismaki. I think I have 4 films left to do. I'm hoping to end this one by the end of the year and end my Jodorowsky one, even though I've only actually done one Jodorowsky. I do intend to finish Jodorowsky by the end of the year, and then I'm hoping to do some new director series in the new year, as well as revisiting my favourites list. And I did recently get a suggestion by viewer Last Unctives to perhaps do an end of the year review, but that would be the best films that I've watched this year. Obviously not the best films of 2021, because I don't really keep up with more current films that much. So I might get around to doing that, because let's be honest, the end of the year will come quicker than the beginning of the year. I think that's how it works. So thanks very much for watching. Again, please let me know if you've watched Juha, what you think of it, where you rank it in Kaurismaki's work, and hopefully you'll join me again for part 14. This is Saul Chironin from Saul Chironin Films, saying farewell.